Welcome to the Alberta Legislature for Thursday, May 10th, 1990. I'm David Carter, Speaker of the House and member for Calgary-Egmont. During question period today, I'm certain we're going to have questions with regard to the social workers' strike and also that of the prison guards. Following question period today, the House will be dealing with the written questions and also the motions for return. This part of the procedure has been taking more and more time in recent years. If indeed we get through those procedural matters, the member for Ponoka-Rimby will be proposing a motion with respect to educational programs for young Albertans so that they're well prepared for the 21st century. At 4:30, the private member's bill to be discussed is number 207, as proposed by the member for Edmonton-Calder, Children's Rights Act. This evening, the House will be sitting with the estimates of the Department of Health. This will be the last night for the main estimates, and the House tonight will probably adjourn about midnight. Amen.
Introduction of visitors.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the members of this Legislative Assembly two of my colleagues from the province of Manitoba and their assistants from the province of Saskatchewan as well. The Honourable Albert Drieger, I'd ask him to stand, the Minister of Highways and Transportation for Manitoba, and his Special Assistant Hollis Kinsey. And from Saskatchewan, the Honourable Sherwin Peterson, Minister of Highways and Transportation, and the Communications Officer Bob Coulter. I would ask that the members of this legislature join in welcoming them to our Assembly.
Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It appears we do have an invasion from the Eastern Prairies here today. I'd like to introduce some of my colleagues to the Legislative Assembly. The Honourable Bonnie Mitchelson, the Minister of Culture, Heritage and Recreation in the province of Manitoba, and her Executive Assistant, Jackie Beaton, and the Honourable Colin Maxwell, the Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism and Recreation in the province of Saskatchewan, and his Executive Assistant, Wade Lusney, who are here visiting and helping us today.
Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions.
Member for Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As today is the last day under our standing orders for consideration of estimates, I rise to give notice that at the end of question period today, I will move the following motion under the provisions of Standing Order 40. Be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Alberta Standing Order 58-1, which limits consideration of the annual budget estimates in Committee of Supply to 25 sitting days, be waived to allow the committee sufficient opportunity to scrutinize and debate the proposed budgetary expenditures of each government department, the total of which exceeds $12 billion for the fiscal year 1990-91.
Introduction of bills.
Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce the Consumption Tax Statutes Amendment Act 1990, Bill number 20. Mr. Speaker, this bill is an omnibus act which reflects changes in the Fuel Tax Act, the Hotel Room Tax Act, Parimutuel Tax Act, the Tobacco Tax Act, to bring them into administrative coordination for purposes of the ensuring the acts are consistent, Mr. Speaker.
Right, you're taxing my patience. Surprise, surprise. The Honorable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading to Bill 20, Consumption Tax Statutes Amendment Act 1990. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 20, Consumption Tax Statutes Amendment Act 1990, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Calder, followed by Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request leave to introduce Bill 243, an act to amend the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped Act. This bill, Mr. Speaker, would stop the provincial government from deducting Canada Pension Plan disability benefits from individuals who already live in poverty and are on the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Calder has moved first reading of Bill 243, an act to amend the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 243, an act to amend the Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Ms. Melsness, is now read a first time.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce a bill number 224, being Bill to Water Transfer Control Act. Mr. Speaker, this bill is to ensure that under the free trade agreements and the federal government that there's no danger that waters will be transferred out of any of Alberta's river basins.
The Honourable Member for Westlock Sturgeon has moved first reading of Bill 224, Water Transfer Control Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 224, Water Transfer Control Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Taylor, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Member for West Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a Bill 280, an act to amend the Members of Legislative Assembly Pension Plan Act. This act will prohibit double-dipping sitting members of this legislature to draw government pensions while sitting as members of this legislature, commonly known as the Frenchy-Bogle Double-Dipping Pension Act.
No, Honourable Member, that's entirely uncalled for. Table, do we have a... The member for West Yellowhead has moved first reading of Bill 280, an act to amend the Members of the Legislative Assembly Pension Plan Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. The chair will check the audio level with my speakers. Perhaps we could just double check. I have a suspicion we might even have a division on first reading at this rate. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. I wonder if members of Member Services Committee voted on this issue. Motion carries.
Bill number 280, an act to amend the Members of the Legislative Assembly Pension Plan Act, introduced by the Honourable Member Mr. Doyle, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports. Introduction of special guests.
The Honourable the Premier, followed by the Associate Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you, and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly, a group of students from across Alberta who participate in the Forum for Young Albertans. These students are in Edmonton this week to learn about our political process. I understand, Mr. Speaker, that they spent some time with you today and that other members of the Assembly have also spoken to them. They're seated in both the members' gallery and the public gallery. They're accompanied by Forum staff Blair Stoltz, and Brian Tightmore. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Associate Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you 26 members of the Consort Junior High, a school in my constituency. These students have traveled quite a distance to visit our legislature and other high points in the city. They are accompanied by parents Dorothy Samuel and Yvonne Eisman, and teachers David Elms and Renee Vanderloos, and bus driver Cleona Weiss. I would ask that they rise and receive the very warm welcome of this assembly.
Member for Banff Cochrane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, the honourable member from Lloydminster, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the Legislative Assembly 57 students from Holy Rosary High School. They are accompanied by their teachers, Ray Politsky and Tim Broku, and I would ask them to stand and please accept the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon I'm pleased to be able to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly 52 grade 6 students from Central Elementary School located in the town of Ponoka. They are accompanied by their teachers, Marilyn Watson and Gordon Hickey, and parents, Teresa Bold, Lorna Ross, and Mr. Evans. Mr. Speaker, they are seated in the members and public gallery, and I would request that they stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Member for Calgary Bowl.
Mr. Speaker, seated in your gallery today is Mr. William Pollard, the Texas recipient of the 1989 Commonwealth Parliamentary Association bursary. Accompanying him is his wife, Nina. Would they please rise to receive the warm welcome of the Assembly?
Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seated in your gallery with their families today are Miss Shauna Gibbons, and Miss Caudell Sagan, both from my constituency, Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Girls Parliament's co-winners of the 1989 Commonwealth Parliamentary Association bursary. Accompanying them is their guest, Mrs. Marlene Larpierre from the Alberta Girls Parliament. I would ask the members of the legislature to give the customary greetings and congratulations for the winning.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to direct my first question to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, this government's policies on labor relations, especially with its public employees, are the worst in Canada, Mr. Speaker. First of all, we had the nurses forced out in strike. Then it was the social workers who couldn't get any action on their concerns, and now it's corrections workers. Mr. Speaker, even this Premier must understand that we now have major problems with our public service, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's hard to figure out this government strategy unless it is to throw every public servant out of a job and into jail or both, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. And I cannot believe that, again, that government negotiators have been sent to yet another bargaining session with instructions to offer yet another study. And this is precisely what's been done with Local 3 of the correctional officers, Mr. Speaker.
Shame.
I say to this government, public employees are sick and tired of studies, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Now, my question to the Premier, what's it going to take for this Premier to understand that studies are no substitute to solutions for public employees' legitimate issues, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the Honourable Solicitor General will want to respond with regards to correctional officers. But first let me say, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition opens his questions with such false information. The vast majority of public service workers in this province negotiate and sign agreements and provide valued service to the people of Alberta. The vast majority. And the vast majority are not lawbreakers. The vast majority are not lawbreakers. Therefore, they pursue their work, they provide valued service to the people of Alberta, and in the vast majority of the times, they negotiate and agree to contracts satisfactory both to the government and to the workers. Having said that, he has raised a new issue of the correctional officers. I'd ask the Solicitor General to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the strategy of this government is obvious and has been obvious for many years. We want to deal openly and fairly with all of the employees of this province and continually try to do so. In respect to the correctional officers, they came back to the table yesterday for a period of 2 hours and then walked away from an offer which was 5% this year, 5% next year, and still walked away, and in fact are demanding 20% over the 2 years. My responsibilities, Mr. Speaker, are in respect to the care and protection of the people within our facilities and in the prisons themselves, and also the protection and the best interest of Albertans. And if the correctional officers choose to walk after 2 hours of negotiation, they cannot be prevented from doing so by us. But I assure you, Mr. Speaker, and all members in this House, that the interests of Alberta will be protected. Those in our custody will be protected as well. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, such nonsense. They can pound their desks in here, but people know what's happening. And you know, the classic, Dawn fiddled while Alberta burned is really happening right here in this province now, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, he wants to call names of lawbreakers and everything else. He knows the full travesty is laws that people can't live with. That's a real tragedy in this, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the reason that they're not negotiating is they frankly don't trust this government, and because they have a track record, Mr. Speaker. And I want to ask the Premier this, simply this: when is the Premier going to stop this deliberate attempt, and I say deliberate attempt, to provoke labor unrest and give these employees something concrete instead of more studies and committees, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I hardly can follow the Honourable Leader of the Opposition's position. The government is negotiating with the various AUP locals. In terms of the social workers, the government had an offer on the table that dealt with both the conditions of work, the payment, and the caseload. Now, they were all there, and there was some disagreement. Obviously, there always is negotiation back and forth, and therefore, when there appeared to be a problem, the government offered mediation. Mediation was turned down. And I think with bad advice, some social workers have taken the illegal action of an illegal strike. And I think, Mr. Speaker, they are valued employees. They provide a valued job here in Alberta. And we say to them, return to your jobs, because I have ordered the government negotiators to deal with this in a meaningful, constructive way, and that they will be able to negotiate a good contract that they would want to have. So Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is completely wrong with the assumptions that he states leading into his question.
Well, Mr. Speaker, thousands of Albertans are all wrong, and this Premier's always all right, Mr. Speaker. Isn't that amazing, Mr. Speaker? All these people are out striking because they enjoy it. That's what they want to do, Mr. Speaker. And he knows full well that with the social workers, they offered it without prejudice. Another committee, Mr. Speaker, and they have a record with this government, and that's the problem. And I want to ask the Premier, when is he finally going to show some effective leadership instead of sitting there calling people lawbreakers and change these ridiculous 19th century labor laws before he alienates the entire public service for good, Mr. Speaker?
repeat again for the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, that the laws of the province of Alberta are made within this legislative assembly. The legislative assembly makes the laws in the democratic way that has been passed down from the British parliamentary system. Frankly, Mr. Speaker, I'd say across the world, most people believe this is the best democratic system there is in the world. And that is how Alberta's laws are formed. Now, the honourable members may not like the fact that they get rejected by the people of Alberta. However, Mr. Speaker, we have a responsibility, having been given that responsibility by the people of Alberta, to create the laws for this assembly to approve, which they have, and then, if I understand the honourable leader of the opposition, it's his point that you break laws you don't like. Now, being a member of this assembly, I find that shocking. Shame. I'm appalled and outraged.
Your Honourable Premier. Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
You're appalling, all right.
This is the government that breaks the laws every time they feel about it with polluters, Mr. Speaker. Procter and Gamble and the rest of them. I'm shocked and outraged, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
But, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't surprise me coming from the arrogance of this government. He wants to talk about labor laws. They brought in closure every way, Mr. Speaker.
That's
Some
right.
democracy. Mr. Speaker, to the other minister, what's his name, Family and Social Services over there, Mr. Speaker. Now, the Minister for Family and Social Services, isn't that what his title is? Isn't that his title? We got a new title, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Family and Social Services has been throwing numbers around to try and discredit social workers who are fighting to reduce caseloads. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell this minister there's no doubt in anybody's mind who the public believes, and it's not him, it's the caseworkers in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's become abundantly clear that the minister has absolutely no idea what frontline workers are trying to cope with. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was in Calgary. In the last 10 years, the number of reports of neglected and sexually and physically abused children has doubled to over 1,200 a month in the Calgary region alone. Mr. Speaker, these children need protection, and nobody cares about them more than the social workers who have dedicated themselves to working in the child welfare system. Let's make that clear. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is, when will the minister give up his campaign to discredit social workers, forget about studies, and do something concrete to reduce caseload?
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, they don't want to deal with the facts. They bring in distorted positions. They do everything they can to incite debate. They do everything they can to encourage strikers. They do everything they can to encourage strikers, Mr. Speaker. Whereas we on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, aren't interested in out there just distorting the facts. We're more interested in presenting the facts as they are. We've done that in a very frank and open way. We believe that it's important to do some research from time to time. Again, contradictory to their position, they like to just jump in and respond and not think of the process through or not look at all the options that might be available. Mr. Speaker, I've said all along that I recognize that there are situations in this province where caseloads are higher than they should be. But what I presented to this assembly is factual reports on what the province-wide situation is like. Totally factual, Mr. Speaker, not numbers that I've made up, but numbers that have been provided through a sworn affidavit, I might add. And I said on a province-wide basis, we have statistics that are in line with other provinces. We have statistics that are in line with the Child Welfare League of America. But again, it doesn't mean to say that there aren't situations that need to be addressed. We're anxious to do that. We are anxious to get on with some solutions. We are anxious to see an end to illegal strikes. We are anxious to see social workers back at the negotiating table, because if they are, Mr. Speaker, we can resolve these issues. But we can't do it through the methods that this member wants to use.
Mr. Speaker, The only thing totally factual about this member is the fact that he's incompetent, Mr. Speaker, and that's what the social workers are saying. That's a totally factual thing, Mr. Speaker. Now, he wants figures, Mr. Speaker. He should go out and talk to people. In the Child Welfare Office that carries out all the investigations for Calgary, before the strike, Mr. Speaker, there was a backlog of 80 cases. Finally, the caseworkers got so frustrated they walked off. Now, Mr. Speaker, the minister's creative calculations and baffling averages mean nothing to these workers, and his numbers sure aren't doing anything for the children who need protection. There was 80, Mr. Speaker, there. Now, I want this minister to answer this question. Can't the minister see that his meaningless number games aren't going to help the children in Calgary or Alberta, but reducing caseloads will?
Mr. Speaker, again, this member finally takes the time to go out and talk to social workers when they're on the picket lines. Well, Mr. Speaker, I didn't wait until then. I took the initiative prior to those kinds of things happening. I took the initiative and I went out and talked with frontline caseworkers from every office in this province. And I talked to them, Mr. Speaker, in a calm and reasoned fashion. We discussed high caseloads in some of the offices. We discussed together some of the solutions. We discussed together some of the things that we could do to address caseload. I've started to implement some of those recommendations, Mr. Speaker. We're prepared to continue to work on that basis. But again, Mr. Speaker, I can't say it enough. We can't resolve the issue, and it's particularly regrettable when we're talking about, again, a minority. And I know that member knows something about minorities, but we're now talking about a minority number of social workers that are holding back now real meaningful progress for those social workers that are at the job site trying to provide those essential services. And that's regrettable, because I want to be able to work with those workers, and there's some illegal strikers that are preventing that from happening.
Final supplementary.
The only thing regrettable is this minister and this government, Mr. Speaker. That's what's regrettable.
Right on, Ray.
Mr. Speaker, this minister, your system is in an absolute disaster right now, and it's time, frankly, that you open your eyes and saw what's really going on. And my question, it has to do with the 80. Remember, I just mentioned they had 80 there. That means they have to spend hours in court. They face mountains of paperwork for each cases. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the minister. Surely even he must understand that that's an impossible situation with a backlog of 80 just in Calgary. And I want to again ask this minister, how can he justify his offer now of another study instead of protecting these children now by reducing caseloads?
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition has spent an awful long time in opposition. And you can see that the long time that he's spent in opposition is starting to frustrate him, and those frustrations are being exemplified in his actions here today. Again, Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate that we have taken a number of initiatives to address caseload in the short time that I've been in this office. That we did put on the negotiating table a reasonable solution to addressing caseloads. Again, Mr. Speaker, the stumbling block isn't this government at this time. The stumbling block is a minority group of social workers that are determined to break the law, and it's regrettable. It's regrettable, Mr. Speaker, because we're anxious to be at the negotiating table. We're anxious to continue to provide long-term, meaningful solutions. The majority of social workers agree with that process, and that's why they're at the job site.
Leader of the Liberal Party, Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, it seems to me ridiculous to argue about a minority when the majority, in fact, are out striking. Mr. Speaker, the social workers...
Down at 17th Avenue and 4th Street tomorrow morning.
In spite of the fact he told him to go back to work. Mr. Speaker, social workers are in a four-way bind. They have a problem with caseload overwork. They have a law that prohibits them from striking and even that prohibits them from arbitrating the issue of overload. They have an injunction forcing them back to work, and now they have the Minister of Labor wielding a big stick against them individually and against the union. And today we have Today we have more public service employees going out on strike, which I think proves the case that this government has lost the control, lost its relationship with government employees. My questions are to the Premier. Mr. Premier, it, I think, is a given that the workers have lost faith with the minister responsible for social services, and they've lost faith with the Minister of Labor. They need a sign of some sort of sincerity on this issue. Is the Premier prepared to commit to a guarantee that all of the workers who return within a reasonable period of time, no workers will be subjected to any kind of criminal or civil activity, and nor will the union?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, again, the leader of the Liberal Party has commenced his questions with false statements. The majority of the workers are not out on strike. The vast majority of public service employees are working, are negotiating, and are able to strike agreements through negotiation. The vast majority. So let's not start questions with false information.
That's right.
Then he switched to a hypothetical situation and said, given a hypothetical situation, will you guarantee something? Obviously, Mr. Speaker, that's impossible to deal with. I will only repeat what I said before, though. We consider these workers valued employees, and they do very effective work in this province. We're negotiating with them. We want to negotiate with them in the matter of the caseload, salaries, working conditions. We want to put in place mediation. We want to put in place a balanced opportunities to solve the problems. Now, it's completely in their hands that they just return to their jobs, come back to the negotiating table, and as I have assured them, I've given orders to the government's negotiators to work with them to a satisfactory agreement. Now, Mr. Speaker, compare that with being out as a minority, breaking the law. Now, it seems to me their action is clear, and I don't know why the members of the opposition would condone some other course of action. It seems to me they would be urging them to back to work and negotiate.
Mr. Speaker, they won't go back because they're threatened with an archaic law, and they're now threatened with an injunction. My second question to the Premier is this. Quite incredibly, we're in the midst of debating the estimates, the budget of the government. That budget calls for a 3.2% reduction in resources given to the child welfare investigative area. So we're adding a problem to a problem that already exists in terms of overload. Will the Premier commit to restoring the budget at least to its previous level so that you don't add a problem to the problem of overload?
Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, again, is coming up with false information. Now, he's got to get better research. As already has been pointed out by the Minister of Family and Social Services, over the period of time that he has been working in this matter, we've had caseloads dropping by 10% in Calgary, by some 4% in Edmonton, and on an average across the province, dropping. Not rising, dropping. And what would the honourable member do? While you have less people on the caseload, increase the dollars? Now, how does that make sense? Surely he must have raised this in the estimate discussions and been able to debate it, and that hardly needs to fall back on it now in the question period.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday a social worker informed me that she cried when she was faced with the court injunction order. Cried because she still couldn't force herself to go back to work and work in an overload situation. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that our Premier is a caring man. He looked in on the Lubicon issue. He looked in on the nurses issue. He looked in on gainers. Will he show that same sort of caring by meeting with one or two social workers to find out what the problem of overload is all about? Will you do that, Mr. Premier?
Well, Mr. Speaker, get to agree with the honourable leader of the Liberal Party that I do care. I care about this province. I care about the social workers, and I care about the people that they help. But I also care about our system of law and order. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that Albertans would say to me, if people break the law, should that give them an advantage in our province? And if, Mr. Premier, if you want breaking the law to create an advantage for you, you are going exactly opposite to the system of law and order which we believe in, and that this Legislative Assembly believes in. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a clear way to solve this, and there's a clear way to dry the tears in the eyes of the member, of the person that the member's talking about. And that is to follow up on what I've said today, come back to your jobs. The orders have been given to our negotiating team. The opportunity is there. And that I believe there would be, in a very short period of time, be a solution reached and an agreement. So there it is, and I think it's fair.
Member for Highwood. Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the minister responsible for lotteries, and I'll make my case brief. Mr. Speaker, it has come to my attention that the country and western singer Katie Lang has received lottery dollars. Now, is the minister responsible for lotteries prepared to confirm or deny this?
Mr. Speaker, annually in the province of Alberta, the province distributes over $100 million to some 20 different foundations or agencies that, in fact, act on behalf of the government, ensuring the dispersal of those dollars. And the honourable member from Highwood says it has come to his attention. Well, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't very many years ago that the country and western singer Katie Lang was simply a young lady growing up in Consort in East Central Alberta, unknown to the people of Alberta, unknown to the people of Canada, unknown to the people of the world. And she applied to the Alberta Foundation for the Performing Arts, one of these 20 or so foundations that we help through the lottery fund. The foundation gets $2.25 million per year. And Katie Lang was provided with a grant in the fiscal year 1984-85 of $5,000 to undertake a tour of Canada. It proved to be very successful. In 1985-86 fiscal year, she applied again to the Alberta Foundation for the Performing Arts. She was awarded a $5,000 grant. She undertook a tour of New York. Today, Mr. Speaker, in 1990, Katie Lang is known not only in Alberta, she's known not only in Canada, she's not only known in North America, but the world, as an outstanding example of the vitality, the enthusiasm, and the commitment of this government to helping its youth to aspire for excellence in the world, Mr. Speaker.
How come she sings at our rallies and not yours then?
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question is again to the minister responsible for lotteries. Further information has come to my attention, and I wondered whether or not lottery dollars have been provided to the world figure skating champion Kurt Browning.
Well, Mr. Speaker, once again, to repeat, through the lottery fund, our objective is to improve family community life, to provide encouragement to the people of Alberta to aspire to become search of excellence, renowned not only in Alberta, Canada, but the world. Kurt Browning applied for assistance through the Alberta Sport Council, a foundation that receives $9.1 million a year in funding for the province. I received $1,200, $1,200 to assist his training. We all know that in 1989, Kurt Browning shocked the figure skating world by becoming the world's men's figure skating champion. And in 1990, Mr. Speaker, became, for the second year in a row, a men's world figure skating champion. Mr. Speaker, Kurt Browning's an Albertan from Caroline, a little community in the Eastern Slope. Albertans can aspire, Mr. Speaker, to be the best in the world.
Welcome back to the House, Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps we can get back to the... Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Perhaps we can get back to the questions of the day, which is what question period is supposed to be about, Mr. Speaker. And, my question is to the Solicitor General and concerns the correctional officers. The correctional officers, as we all know, are currently withdrawing their services in some of the correctional institutions in this province, and they are not the first people to want to do that sort of thing, Mr. Speaker. They're very responsible people, and something really quite serious must have occurred for them to take this step. And what, of course, has occurred, Mr. Speaker, is that they are faced with the prospect of compulsory arbitration under the provisions of the Government Employees Labor Relations Act, and the obscene provisions of that act, Mr. Speaker, which removes from the table some of the most important things that employees can wish to bargain about. In particular, Mr. Speaker, I refer to organization of work, assignment of duties, and pensions. And these are some of the very things, Mr. Speaker, that these correctional workers wish to bargain about. At the same time, yes, my question then is this: given that, Mr. Speaker, at the same time there is no meaningful bargaining on these points going ahead, and wasn't on Tuesday when they met, will the Solicitor General commit to this House that this government will in fact bargain in good faith with the correctional workers on all the matters that affect their job?
Mr. Speaker, my understanding was, and maybe the honourable member from Strathcona has more information than I have of what the issues were on the table, but I thought they were salaries and pensions. The salaries, we offered 10% increase over 2 years. The pensions have not been bargained. However, let me say this: it may be an opportunity to look at government pensions, because if, in fact, these correctional officers in the Solicitor General's Department want a pension plan which is the same as the police or the same as some of the eastern provinces, and they are willing to pay 32% of payroll for it, maybe we should be talking to them about it.
But Mr. Speaker, the pensions that were on the table was not to negotiate with the negotiating committee on them, but simply to form a joint committee to review the locals' concerns. That's quite different. So I asked this minister, a very able minister, in my respectful submission, nonetheless, to tell us why it should be the case that they have no problem with making 64-year-old guards responsible for the control of 19-year-old inmates, and yet cannot talk about those conditions of work with this bargaining committee.
I was wondering, Mr. Speaker, what review committee was being talked about when the Honourable Leader of the Opposition raised the matter of another review. Well, it now appears it's a review that was asked for by the prison guards, and I, quite matter of fact, wasn't aware of that. I will ascertain from my own department what the hang-up is in respect to these negotiations, and cause the men to walk away from the table 2 hours after negotiations started yesterday, and 2 hours after that advises that they were taking job action.
Thank you. Honorable members, this is most unusual, but you know it's a very large province. We have one group here who traveled 6 hours one way to get here and need about obviously the same time to get home. Could we revert very briefly to the introduction of special guests, and the time will be added on to question period? Member for Pincher Creek, Crow's Nest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed a pleasure for me to introduce 17 members of the Rocky View Christian School from Pincher Creek to the Assembly today. I left Pincher Creek at 4:30 this morning. They visited the Edmonton AGT Tower. They are here to see government in action. They're going over to the Space Sciences Center, and then they're going back to Pincher Creek this evening, another 6-hour trip. So I commend them for their interest and their effort. Would they please rise and receive the warm welcome of the members of the Assembly.
Calgary Buffalo, followed by Calgary Fish Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Premier, our caucus has it on good authority that Premier Peterson will not agree to unbundling the Meech-Lake Accord to allow separate passage of parts requiring only 7 provinces. Quebec has said that it won't agree to a sunset clause to the unanimity requirement for Senate reform. Meech Lake has about as much life as Monty Python's parrot, yet the Premier refuses to understand that if he wants Albertans to accept constitutional reform, they have to be consulted first. I'm wondering whether the Premier doesn't realize that Albertans deserve to hear more from him about the different options that he's proposing on their behalf. What is he proposing these days?
Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned to the honourable member yesterday, these are very difficult negotiations. I'm not optimistic about the ability to pull the premiers together. And I cautioned him that this was not a particularly good time to try and get into some kind of scoring of political points one way or another. So I'm not going to take him up on a debate during the question period. Rather, to repeat to him that we are trying to work together as leaders in Canada to come up with meaningful constitutional reform. Because we feel, and certainly I and this government feel so strongly, that our country must be united. And we must concentrate on those things that will pull us together. So we will be a strong, great nation in the future. Not concentrate on those things. Not concentrate on those things that pull us apart. Therefore, I could only say to him that Alberta will be working for the 3 principles I mentioned yesterday. A united Canada, stronger, equal provinces that won't be dictated to from the center of the nation as they were during the early 1980s, and that we will be able to make a breakthrough on Senate reform. That will guide us in the future. I can't possibly get into the negotiations with the honourable member as to what Premier Barraza might do or what Premier Peterson might do.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all want unity, but Meech is in trouble because 11 ministers made a decision behind closed doors, and the people of Canada don't like it. And I'm wondering whether the Premier would support establishing a constitutional convention whereby citizens of Canada would get together in order to establish the constitutional principles that would be acceptable to Canadians in the future.
Mr. Speaker, the comment about behind closed doors is just one of those glib comments that have absolutely no fact behind them. We had leaders of this country, democratically elected leaders, 10 premiers and the Prime Minister, worked together for starting in Edmonton in August of 1986, worked together in innumerable meetings of officials, of ministers, of first ministers, worked together for the betterment of Canada to try and make sure that we had the entire constitutional family together, to try and correct the errors of 1981. Now, we worked together, and we were able to come to an agreement which we felt would heal the constitutional problems. We then brought them back to this Assembly. We introduced them in the Assembly. We let it sit for 6 months, public documents all the time. Ministers and MLAs took them back to their constituents, had meetings, discussed it, came back again to this legislature, had a full debate, and then had it unanimously passed in the legislature of Alberta. Now, what could be more public than that? So to have the honourable member throw in some glib comment like that doesn't bring credit to him, doesn't help the constitutional problems that we face, and I just urge him to, in the future, try and work together to build this country, not concentrate on these things that could pull us apart.
Calgary Fish Creek, followed by Edmonton Johnson Plains.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned the other evening during Committee of Supplies study of the Solicitor General's estimates, a number of the Calgary MLAs are receiving increasingly hostile phone calls and inquiries with respect to long lineups and protracted service delays in motor vehicle licensing offices. And I wonder, Mr. Speaker, if the Solicitor General is prepared today to indicate to the Assembly what steps he might be taking to resolve what's becoming a very unpleasant matter in Calgary.
Mr. Speaker, I indicated during estimates that there were a number of reasons for the difficulties in Calgary, but I further indicated that I wasn't satisfied to sit back on those reasons and say that that was the whole fault. What we have in Calgary, of course, is a situation where, in fact, no private sector issuers are involved. In Greater Edmonton, there are private sector issuers involved in Sherwood Park, St. Albert, Leduc, Spruce Grove, which goes a great distance to relieve the pressure upon the motor vehicle division sector. And I'm going to be looking into and have issued instructions that this be looked into in Calgary for the possibility of utilizing private sector businesses for issuing of motor vehicle licenses.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm certainly encouraged that the Solicitor General is taking a look at the problem, and I'm wondering if he'd be prepared to commit to share with the Assembly prior to the conclusion of the current legislative sitting what his specific intentions are with respect to that problem.
I would be more than pleased to accept that request, Mr. Speaker, and would advise all members of the Assembly the steps we will be taking before adjournment.
Edmonton Jasper Place, followed by Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the Premier, this is the government that rammed 5 pulp mill projects down the throats of people in Alberta with no public hearings, no independent review of the scientific evidence, no environmental impact assessment on the forestry. Yesterday I tabled a copy of a memorandum outlining an Alberta-led scheme to deprive all Canadians of their access to courts to protect their right to a healthy future. This government wants the right to make secret deals with big companies that pollute. The Premier said outside the House yesterday it's only a memo. Memos aren't policy. Well, I'd like to refer the Premier to the communique of the Western Premiers, that kind of policy, and where they said the Western Premiers call on the federal government to take immediate action by amending the existing ERP guidelines order as an interim measure to improve the process and restore certainty. End of quote. Assuming that the Premier reads these communiques before he approves them as policy, will he now admit that the desire to restore certainty is a blatant effort to go back to the old ways where he cuts the deal at the expense of the environment and people have no say?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member consistently leads into his questions on the basis of false information. Right. Now, one of the most unbelievable was when he got into it yesterday with the so-called secret or leaked memo from some caring citizen. Because what does that memo say? He says that it is shutting people off from the courts. Now, he stood here to try and leave that impression that people were not being able to go to the courts on environmental matters. Here's what it said. In order to remove environmental policy from the courts. Now, never has it been the situation in Canada where courts make policy. Courts are there to interpret laws. Now, it's true in the United States that they have a constitution and a system with their Supreme Court where it actually makes policy. But in Canada, the courts interpret the laws. The policy is supposed to be developed and is developed within a government elected democratically by the people, not appointed to a court. That is what this was talking about. Now, the honourable member may be frustrated that he has bounced around from several governments where people have not supported them, and so he's never in a position to have policy input. But let's remember, he accurate when you quote things, because he certainly distorted it yesterday, Mr. Speaker.
You can do better than that.
Perhaps if the Premier is in the mood to read things, he can read paragraph 1 of the memo, which says, developed a strategic position regarding the proposed Federal Environmental Assessment Act with respect to interim measures that need to be taken to remove environmental decision-making from the courts. Yeah. Well, he wants the right to make all the decisions in his room in secret, and take away the right of Albertans to be heard in a public hearing. That's right. And I would like him to explain what type of environmental policy it is that allows 5 pulp projects to be rammed down people's throats in northern Alberta with no public hearings, no EIA on...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I hope the honourable member never is in a position of government when he wants to send the decision-making that a government is given responsibility for to the courts. Now, one of the things, Mr. Speaker, that the government has been able to do, and the honourable member doesn't agree with, is to make a dramatic diversification of our economy. We have a magnificent forest resource with the best forest management procedures anywhere in Canada, and we're able to take that resource, a renewable resource, and develop that resource, provide jobs for the people of Alberta, remove people from welfare, lower caseloads, allow young people to grow up and live and build in their own homes, fulfill their aspirations and hopes. And this member predicted that we couldn't do it, that we couldn't diversify the economy.
How long could he be?
Honourable member, no, you will not start, and no, you will not rise until you're recognized, and if the place quiets down, you probably will get into question period. Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the mid-1970s, this government dropped its stumpage rates. Stumpage rates are the price that they charge companies for buying our trees. Dropped its stumpage rates from $5 per cubic meter to 70 cents per cubic meter. Guess what, Mr. Speaker? After 15 years, they are still charging the same 70 cents per cubic meter, despite the fact that timber prices have increased back to the levels which supported the original $5 stumpage fee. To the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, how can this minister continue to sell trees today for 1975 prices, or is he simply confirming what many of us have actually suspected for an awfully long time, that this government is in fact truly living in the past in the worst possible way?
Mr. Speaker, there are none so blind as those who will not see. I have provided the information to the honourable members with respect to stumpage rates. Stumpage rates are looked at across this country, and each province deals with them in a different way. There are certain charges added to stumpage in Alberta that aren't added in other provinces, and those are examples are protection charges and other charges. Mr. Speaker, to say that we are charging too low a stumpage rate, that's ridiculous. Just the same as to say you were charging too high, because if we were charging too low, Mr. Speaker, we could be countervailed for something like that, and so our stumpage rates and our handling charges and the cost of the companies must be competitive, Mr. Speaker, and they are.
Thank you. Supplementary, Edmonton Meadowlark.
Speaker, everything else is equal. In 1973 and 1974, they were charging the same extra charges, but stumpage rates were $5 per cubic meter. Today, the same extra charges, but stumpage rates are 70 cents per cubic meter. Will this minister simply stop
all of that stuff and say and admit that in fact he is continuing to charge 70 cents per cubic meter, despite the fact that that is costing Albertans as much as last year alone, $20 million, which otherwise would have been raised if he'd been charging stumpage rates equivalent to those charged in 1973.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is totally inaccurate. We're not charging 70 cents. I don't know where he's getting his numbers from. I said that our rates here that are charged to the companies for the timber resource are competitive with other provinces, and we make sure of that. Also, on the pulp side, the stumpage rates are indexed to the price of pulp, Mr. Speaker, so that we have taken all of that into account. In addition to that, reforestation is a responsibility of the companies here, and that's a significant charge to them. And effective May 1, we added the new free-to-grow standard, which added an additional cost to the companies with respect to the cost of their wood. So, Mr. Speaker, we are adapting to changing times.
Thank you. Time for question period has expired, even for Edmonton Meadowlark. We have a request for Standing Order 40, Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll read for members of the Assembly the motion that I want to sponsor under Standing Order 40, which allows for urgent matters to be considered without prior notice. The motion reads as follows. Be it resolved that the Legislative Assembly of Alberta Standing Order 58-1, which limits consideration of the annual budget estimates in Committee of Supply to 25 days, sitting days, be waived to allow the committee sufficient opportunity to scrutinize and debate the proposed budgetary expenditures of each government department, the total of which exceeds $12 billion for the fiscal year 1990-1991. Speaking to the urgency, Mr. Speaker, as you will know, and as will all members of the Assembly know, today will be the last day, in other words, the 25th day for consideration of the government's proposed budget, and that includes all of its departments. That's an awful lot of money to be considered in a relatively few days, Mr. Speaker. It looks to me like about $500 million a day on average that would be considered if you were to divide the amount of the budget into the amount of sitting days allowed for consideration of the estimates. I understand that ordinarily any changes to standing orders would be the subject of negotiation between House leaders. That hasn't happened this year, and there's, as far as I can see, no one to blame. One of these days we'll get as far as Standing Order 51. I think we're still closer to in the teens or the early 20s on negotiations. But my point is this. I'm not asking for a new number of days to be set. What I'm asking for is for this year that standing order to be waived so that we can see how long it would take to give proper debate and consideration to each of the departments that come up for consideration. It seems to us, Mr. Speaker, that that this is a reasonable request. This is the only day, of course, in which it can be made, this being the last day of estimates that are allowed under 58-1, and that it's a reasonable request. Let's try it out, see if we can get unanimous consent of the members, see how long it takes to get through estimates, probably not, you know, another year or anything, and then maybe we'd have the way to amending the standing orders for the future. Given the amount of money that is involved, given the number of MLAs who never get to speak, who never get to ask questions about the proposed expenditures, it seems to me a very reasonable request, and I do urge unanimous consent for this urgent motion. Thank you.
Under Standing Order 40, the request, those willing to give unanimous consent, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. And it fails. Orders of the day.
Written questions.